They weren't beholden. They didn't have to pay tax to anyone unless they created a port and you pay some city tax to someone. Tallinn and Riga are really the major Hansa towns. In Tallinn, if you remember, right at one of the major intersections, there's a major restaurant called Hansa. Maybe some of you were able to eat in it. That's an original Hanseatic League house. It's now a restaurant. It was a trading post in the lower town of Tallinn. I've never eaten in the restaurant, but I'm sure you can get, quote, authentic medieval food. Anyway, not that I'm sarcastic about that at all. Anyway, the next thing that comes our way is the Teutonic Crusade. All of the Hanseatic League and all of the inhabitants of the papal cities were not Christian. There were some, but the Baltic states were actually the last bastion, if you wish, of paganism. The Vikings, of course, were pagan, and the descendants of everyone in the Baltic states were not Christian. By 1198, Pope Innocent III said, just like they've starting to send crusades at that time, the first crusade to Jerusalem was around the same time, they said, well, we've got to convert the pagans in the Baltic, in the northern European towns, to Catholicism, to Christianity. And he sent the Teutonic Knights. And it's interesting, I just want to give you the expression that was used, because most of the Teutonic Knights, of course, were a German set of knights to fight for the cross. And they said their philosophy here was, "Drank nach Osten," go eastward, which phrase is one that you're going to see again in World War II, because it was the famous phrase that Hitler adopted to say, I'm searching for Lebensraum, living room, and it's going to be in the east. Anyway, the Teutonic Knights were launched by the Pope, and they were very successful. They were very strong militarily. They established colonies, in particular in Riga, and they created a new state called Livonia, which was to be part of the Holy Roman Empire. We'll see that state in a second. It's not necessary to start memorizing any of this. The fun thing for those of you who, though, know a little bit about Middle East, medieval history is, this was going to be a new state in the Holy Roman Empire. And what's the joke about the Holy Roman Empire? It's neither holy, nor Roman, nor an empire. And it really wasn't holy. It was designed to be almost a mercantilist and politically powerful institution with feudalism all over the place. It definitely wasn't Roman. The old Roman Empire was long since gone in the West. And it wasn't an empire. It was a collection of small principalities, duchies, and the rest. So these are the inside jokes that historians tell. It's pretty drab, I know, and it's not gonna win you any impromptu applause. But you have to put up with that in our profession. There was a papal inducement to do this. The Pope, of course, this is not just for the crusade in the north, but the crusades in Jerusalem to fight the Muslim infidels. He promised eternal heaven to all fighters on the crusade if they died in the crusade converting or combating infidels. And as I said, this Baltic Eastern Shore was the last spot in Europe to be converted to Christianity. Finland was converted by the Swedes finally in the 12th century. Estonia and Latvia in the early 13th century by the Danes and Germans, and they created the Livonian state there, and eventually even Lithuania. I wanted to show you an authentic picture of the Teutonic Knights. I was able to go back in time and take that picture of the Teutonic Knights. So anyway, I am a great fan of Monty Python, so if you've got any other great pictures, be sure to tell me. Anyhow, The Baltic Sea became, in a sense, a Teutonic Knight principality. Livonia, as I've said, is up here, where Estonia and Latvia are today. It's called Livonia up here. This was a new territory surrounded by Lithuania. We're going to talk about that in 2 seconds, Poland, etc. I just want to mention Lithuania became one of the major powers at this time. Remember I talked about last time, Sweden was the major North Baltic power, and it was competing against Lithuania, which had a partnership with Poland, actually. And they adopted Christianity. Lithuania and Poland adopted Lithuania adopted Christianity in 1385. It joined in 1569 with Poland to form this Commonwealth, this bigger nation. They expand to include the Ukraine and Belarus, and you can see that on the map if you know. This is really the Ukraine above. This is where Kiev would be, above the Crimea, and of course Belarus is all of this territory in here. The only reason I want to also, though, mention a little bit about this is they had a very unique individual history. And on one of your tours 2 days from now, when we're in Lithuania, I see there's one tour that's going to go to one of the artists' parks. The Soviets, when they controlled all of this, in 1979, they opened what they called an artist park to give the local Lithuanians the ability to have free expression. And the artists there carved a lot of wood sculptures. Well, what they did was they incorporated it in the wood sculptures, a secret language. And it's the language of the early Lithuanians it was called wonder stories, at least that's the way we translated it in English. And it was a language that no one else knew, but the Lithuanians did. And the Russians thought these were all little silly myths and children's stories, but in reality what they were doing was making fun of the Soviets. So right in their own backyard, they were being made fun of. It's a very weak way to protest without getting killed, but at least the Lithuanians were able to do that. We talked about the Great Northern War. Sweden was the major power. It controlled